Good afternoon, everyone, and welcome to So You're Thinking of Becoming a Consultant, a webinar hosted by the Institute of Consulting. My name is Mel, I'm an events coordinator here at CMI, and I'll shortly be handing over to Chris to begin this afternoon's event. If you have any questions during the webinar, you can ask them using the live chat box on the right of your screen, and we shall answer as many as we can during the Q&A. Today's session is being recorded, and it will be shared later on today with those who are booked to attend, and will also be available on the CMI website and CMI YouTube channel. Now over to Chris Goostrey, Chair, Institute of Consulting and IC Hub, London.
Thanks, Mel, and welcome everyone. So, you're thinking of becoming a consultant. To provide some insights into this, I'm joined this afternoon by Tony Lavender, who spent a couple of years in the Royal Navy before a career in the civil service, mainly in the Ministry of Defence, and which included 6 years as an internal consultant and 2 years as Deputy Director of the Civil Service College, where he was responsible for consultancy training. After leaving the service, he entered consultancy in a private capacity, where he has some 20 years experience, mainly working on public sector reforms abroad. And he also concentrates on consultancy training and mentoring. He is an approved centre for the CMI courses and professional consulting and provides mentoring for top-level qualifications. He will be followed by Tom Spence, who co-founded 2 human capital consulting businesses focused within the legal sector, having started his career initially 15 years ago in talent management. His area of expertise is centred on advising on growth strategies, and he's carried out consultancy projects for clients internationally for almost a decade. He's a certified management consultant and became a chartered management consultant last year. And then finally, we'll be handing over to Simon White, who has 24 years of sales leadership experience, including the past 7 years as a sales trainer and sales performance coach. He provides sales coaching and training, which are based on real-world experience and best practice methodologies, empowering clients with the skills and processes to make lasting improvements to their sales results. So without any further delay, over now to Tony to commence.
Sorry, Tony, you have to just unmute yourself.
Hello, can you hear me now? Yes?
Yeah.
Okay, good. Good afternoon, everyone. I'm delighted to take part today and to give you this brief overview of consultancy. I think I might like to start off with giving a definition of a consultant, because this is one of those terms that means many things to different people in different ways. So, and the definition I like is consultant is someone who advises a client or an organization in order to help it run more effectively. The main elements of a consultancy are normally that there's a problem or an issue, there is a client, there are some terms of reference, followed by some investigations or fact-finding. That then leads to some analysis, ending up with a report with recommendations. As I see it, a good consultant needs to have the following attributes. They need to have the right academic or professional qualifications. They also need to have a knowledge of the market or the sector they're working in, so they know where projects are coming from. In addition, they need to have credibility, professionalism and ethics, possibly also with a code of conduct. These kind of aspects can be covered by becoming a member of our institute. The work that the areas of work that consultants work in cover quite a wide range, including things like IT, strategy, human resource management, finance, change projects, logistics, marketing, and areas in the public sector. As regards to the future demand for consultants, Professor Joe Omani, who is a professor of consultancy at Cardiff University, he suggests that the areas of work in the future will be probably focused around things like digitization, IT, big data, automation, and risk management. The consultancy industry employs about 100,000 people. There are about 40,000 in the large multinationals, companies like PwC, Accenture, Accenture, and so on. The middle range companies employ about 20,000, and there are another 40,000 who are in small companies and also operating as sole traders. The consulting industry is quite large. Last year it was worth about £10 billion, but that was down a bit due to COVID-19. One of the big problems facing consultancy is that it is what is called an unregulated profession. That means that anybody can call themselves a consultant. So what happened was, some years ago, groups of consultants in different countries got together and formed consultancy institutes which provided qualifications, training, and codes of conduct. Consequently, they got joined together to form an international council which controls the global standards for consultancy. And this international council has a qualification called Certified Management Consultant, CMC. The International Council also recently was involved in the creation of an international standard, ISO 2700, which gives guidance on consultancy to both clients and to consultants. In the UK, we have the Institute of Consulting, which is part of the CMI, and we have about 6,000 members. A key part about being professional, I suggest, is that you need to be trained and qualified, and this can give you an edge over other consultants. Looking first at training, the CMI has a very good suite of professional consultancy courses. These range from an award to a certificate and then to a diploma. And all of these courses are approved by the government's Office for Qualification, Ofqual. These courses give a sound foundation to new entrants and also those who wish to become more qualified. The top level or senior type of qualifications, there are two. There is the CMC I mentioned earlier, which is offered by the Institute of Consulting on behalf of the International Council. And to undertake this particular training, you need to have about 3 years experience. In addition to that, just recently, the CMI, in conjunction with the Management Consultants Association, have introduced the award of Chartered Management Consultant. This aims to have the highest standards of consultants throughout the country and is the only chartered award in this area. To undertake this, you need to have at least 7 years good experience. Both qualifications require completing a comprehensive application form, which is followed by a lengthy interview. The IC website gives full details of both the training and these top-level consultancies. Finally, I'd just like to mention some upcoming events that are online, which you may be interested in. On the 11th and the 29th of March, there will be courses on ISO 2700. And this is a very good way to get an understanding that you are working to a fully international standard. And in addition to that, once you complete that course, you get accreditation with International Council that you are actually trained in ISO 2700. And once again, this will add to your credibility. Then on the 29th of March, Tom and I will be running a free webinar on moving into consultancy, which will basically expand some of the points that we're making today. And then in April, Professor Joe Omani will deliver a masterclass on the pricing of consultancy projects. So you can see there are quite some exciting things coming up, and I do hope you look at them. Now, I will now pass over to Tom, who will explain to you how to get started as a management consultant.
Thanks very much, Tony. So today I'm just going to talk through my route into consultancy and also really what you need to build a foundation to start your consultancy business. As Chris mentioned, I've now started 2 businesses in the consulting sector, and have learned along the way through successes and failures of that, and hopefully can pass on some knowledge. So in terms of my route into consulting, it was very much client driven. A number of years ago, clients started asking me for advisory services essentially, and looking to use my knowledge and expertise to deliver strategic projects. And after a number of years of doing that, I wanted to ensure that I was doing the right things by my clients, for myself, and for the consulting industry, and found the IC and CMI, and was fortunate enough as well to meet Tony, and went on a number of Tony's courses. My first sort of foray into the qualification side was my level 5 in professional consulting, and then subsequently CMC, and last year became chartered. And I suppose from my perspective, there's the practical side to consulting and actually delivering work for clients, and then there's the support, the more theoretical and educational side, which is all wrapped into personal development, which is where the IC really comes in, and that in itself helps deliver a better service to your clients, and provide you as an independent consultant greater confidence in actually what you are advising and delivering. In terms of actually setting up your own consultancy business, as Tony's touched on, it's different for everyone, and for each individual, it means different things, and you have the opportunity to take your business in whichever direction you would like to go. From my experience, there are 4 key components to building a stable foundation to grow your business from. Those are finance and accounting, technology, social media, and insurance. I'm just going to talk briefly about each of those 4 components. The accounting side is one where you can choose how you grow and develop your business. I was provided advice when I started my first business, which was outsource as much of the task that you're not comfortable with to someone else who is qualified to do so. Accountancy is one of those for me. I would prefer to have an accountant run my books, and corporation tax, VAT, and personal tax, than have the pressure essentially of doing that myself, so I can focus more of my energy on delivering to clients and growing my business. But essentially, the advice you get from an accountant at the outset is how to register your company with Companies House, whether you need to be VAT registered or not. Sole traders that are trading up to £85,000 don't need to be VAT registered, for example. What type of company structure, business structure you would want to employ. I think that's quite an important factor for later on down the line, to make sure that the company and your consultancy is really working for you as an individual as well. And so getting good advice around the incorporation of your business is really important from the outset. But as well as that, some of the tools accountants use these days are really built to make life efficient, both for them and for you. And whether you're using an accountant or not, I really think the benefit of some of the invoicing tools and expenses tools and software essentially is really beneficial to all companies, and importantly us as independent consultants, because it alleviates that time spent that certainly I used to spend on running my aspects of my books essentially. Moving on to the technology side of things, again, it's outsourcing in the right way. Website, everyone will need one at some stage, and unless you're a web developer, it's best to outsource that to someone that's credible in that space. Again, my advice from experience would be to not spend too much initial capital on a website, making it look really sort of all bells and whistles essentially, because your business will evolve and change over time. Certainly in the first year or two, it will change significantly, and so building a smaller website that is maybe cost effective but more easily adaptable in time is better than a very expensive one from the get-go. Along with this, there are components of the technology side of a business that you can do yourself, even for someone like me who's not very technologically proficient. Buying your web hosting, your web domain, setting up emails, looking into your data protection and privacy policies, and also becoming GDPR compliant, all really important to deal with and handle at the outset, rather than being behind the curve on those pieces in time, but all very simple things that with a little bit of research you can do yourself. From an insurance perspective, I think it's quite straightforward. You need good advice about what level of insurance you need, either as a sole trader or a limited company or a partnership or what have you, just to be sure that you are able to advise your clients in the right way and be secure in doing that. Insurance is one of the things, particularly if you're coming from a larger organization, that a lot of the back office stuff is dealt with by other parts of the business, is easy to sometimes forget, but actually it should be right at the top of your list. Finally, social media and social media presence. When I started my first business 8 or so years ago, it was not on the sort of the top of the to-do list. Essentially, it was part of the world, but it shows how far we've come from a social media perspective. That really now, I would say it's right up there with a website, particularly for independent consultants. Social media, LinkedIn as probably the best example from a business perspective, really operates as your source to market. And I'd say you'd probably get as much traffic through LinkedIn as you would your website, potentially more. And so having a really clear personal and company LinkedIn bio and page is really important from the outset. Once you've got the foundations in place, the final, I think another crucial element is building your network and understanding how to use your network. This is where CMI for me has played and does play a really important role, and the IC, sorry. Like-minded individuals going through similar or who have gone through similar experiences of establishing their own consultancy business, client demands, the challenges of being an independent consultant, etc. That's what the IC, for me, from a networking perspective, brings, is the ability to share and exchange views with people that are there to be used and are there to exchange views and experiences with, as well as Tony's mentioned, the training and educational side, the qualifications that enhance your business. The network is extremely important. Once you've developed the IC network, you also need to look at your own personal network, and that for me is crucial in terms of building you the support structure. We've all seen in the last year, life has changed significantly, and people are feeling isolated at the best of times. For independent consultants, that can be even a greater challenge. And so having a really clear support network that you can rely on, exchange views with, and communicate with is extremely important. Once you have all those components in place, then it's a case of developing the message you're going to be selling to the market, to be selling to your clients. And on this front, I'm going to hand over to Simon, who's going to impart some wisdom.
Thank you. I will try, Tom. Thank you very much. So I'm going to talk about consultative selling, and I'm going to share with you 3 principles that will enable you to win more clients. So what is consultative selling? Well, there's a great definition of consultative selling that I love, and it's simply this. Consultative selling is taking the prospect on a journey where they discover that they need what you have. So I'll say that again. Consultative selling is taking the prospect on a journey where they discover that they need what you have. It's not about features, it's not about price, it's not about availability, it's about business outcomes. And as we all know as consultants, we are professional problem solvers. It's important to remember that people buy for two reasons, one of two reasons. Either they have a problem that they don't want, or they are looking for a result that they do not yet have, and they want our help to do that, and can we do that profitably? So the way we sell as consultants is really, the best way for me is to adopt a doctor's mindset. And what is a doctor's mindset? It's about asking great questions to take them on that journey. If you go to the doctors, maybe with a bad back or something, and you go to the doctor's surgery, they don't say to you, sit down and let me tell you a little bit about myself. I've been a doctor for 15 years. Happy customers include Mrs. Smith from number 67. I've cured her verrucas. They don't do that, do they? They don't, it's not telling is not the same as selling. They sit you down and they ask you some questions. How can I help you today? Well, I've got a bad back. How long has it been going on for? Does it hurt anywhere else? Etc., etc. And only when they fully understand your problem will they even start to prescribe a solution to you. They don't rush in, because if they rush in with the wrong solution in the doctor scenario, they can get struck off, etc., etc. So they're really careful to do that. And one of the biggest mistakes I see in with salespeople or people who are selling is they're all about the telling. They go in there with a solution straight away. Hey, look, I've got this. It's great, isn't it? Actually, what we do in a consultative sales process is we want to diagnose the problem first, and then we look to the solution. So, as I say, telling is not the same as selling. So it's all about questions. And as we know, and as you know, as consultants or people who are moving into consultancy, it's open questions will gather information for us, and closed questions will give us confirmation. But it's the quality of those questions that matters. And there's a little acronym that I always use called TED. Tell me, explain, describe. And they're beautiful questions to ask a prospect without coming across salesy. Because the last thing we want to do is sound like Del Boy. Okay, we don't want to sound like salespeople. We are professional consultants. But by asking the right questions, we can take them on that journey. So tell me how you currently, explain your process for, describe how. Those kind of questions are great. And there was a book written in 1988 called Spin Selling by Neil Rackham. And it's a beautiful book just about how to ask really great questions in sales. And spin selling stands for situation, problem, implication, and needs payoff. So the situation question might be, how do you currently, whatever that is, how do you currently? Problem question might be, what problems is that causing you? The implication question is, what happens in 6 months if you don't solve this problem? Okay, what's it going to cost you? And the needs payoff might be, if I can reduce your churn rate by 10%, what might that mean to your business? Those kind of questions, really great processes, because something that a lot of people miss is, yes, it's important to understand the problem the client has, but unless you can link that to a consequence for them not solving it, a penalty, really, a financial penalty of not solving it, then you can't really control that sale, and they may not feel that the pain is great enough. So you can find a problem, always find out what is that costing them, and what does utopia look like if you can solve that problem for them. Okay, so that is obviously consultancy selling. One of the mistakes I come across as well is, we often have in sales what we refer to as happy ears. We hear all the good stuff and we don't hear any of the bad stuff. So we want to qualify opportunities really well, as best as we can, qualify opportunities. And what do I mean by that is, well, one of the mistakes we make in selling is spending our time with the wrong prospects. The amount of miles I have racked up over the last maybe 25 years is just incredible, of driving to meetings, sitting down with prospect, listening to what they've got to say, driving back, doing a proposal. And in the end, did they buy? Well, in sales, it's one of these weird careers where 90% of the people you ever speak to do not buy from you. There's only a small percentage who will go on to become a client of yours. So we want to have a structure in place to helping us to qualify opportunities, to make sure that They actually have a genuine need for our services and aren't just interested in what we do. So the acronym I'm going to share with you now is called PACT, P-A-C-T-T. Pain, authority, consequence, timing, and target audience. Okay. Pain. Do they have a problem that I can help them solve? And do they really want to solve it? Okay. Do they have a business case for that? Authority. Can they make the decision? Can they influence the decision? How's that decision going to be made? Consequence. What happens if they decide not to go ahead with this project? What if they decide not to buy from me? Is the status quo in their world okay to stay with? If they're happy and comfortable with their current situation, then is there really an opportunity for me? But it's really great if you can identify what that consequence might be. Same as with the spin, the implication, what happens if they decide to do nothing? Timing. What is their timing? When are they going to make a decision? When do they want to have this implemented by? How are they going to make that decision? And then the other T, target audience. Are they the kind of business I want to work with? Are they the right size, the right sector, the right location? Is that contact or contacts that I'm dealing with, are they the kind of people I want to work with over the next weeks, months, and years? You know, have I done a credit check on them? Are they, you know, can they afford me? They might want me, they might have a big need, but can they actually afford to work with me? So qualifying opportunities in or qualifying opportunities out is one of the key skills that you need as a consultant, because you can't help everybody, and not everybody needs your help, and not everybody can afford your help. So if they can, and you want to work with them, invest the time. If they can't, move on to the next one. Very important. The final thing I'd like to share with you is an acronym that I created called TOAD. There's a lot of acronyms in selling, by the way, so I hope you're writing them down. The acronym I want to share with you is called TOAD, T-O-A-D. And I wish I'd have come up with this 20 odd years ago. It is a way of structuring a sales meeting with a prospect. So often we go to a meeting and it's that uncomfortable part at the beginning. You're making some small talk, whether this is on the phone or on Zoom or face-to-face, and no one really controls the meeting. There hasn't been an agenda agreed. There's a loose reason for it. Stick with TOAD, and this is how it works. So T of TOAD, timing. And I will say, on the phone, we agreed provisionally an hour for today's meeting. Does that still work for you? Okay. If the answer is yes, great, continue. If they say no, well, how long do you have? There is nothing worse than being in a meeting with multiple decision makers, stakeholders in that meeting, and you get halfway through the meeting, you're just about to get to all the good stuff, and the key decision maker stands up and says, sorry, I've got to leave for another meeting, I'll catch up with you another time. It's gone. So always confirm how much time you've got. You don't have, this is not an agenda that you email them in advance. It is at the beginning of that meeting, you simply say, we agreed an hour for today's meeting, does that still work for you? So that's the T. The O is objective. What do we want it to cover today? And I will simply say, the aim of today's meeting is to cover X, Y, and Z. Or the purpose of today's meeting is to just make sure that everybody in that meeting is on the same page. The amount of times, I used to work for quite a big company, and I'd get pulled into a meeting, someone, can you come join our meeting? I said, what's the meeting about? Oh, we've got someone coming in to see us. It doesn't matter. So not everybody in that meeting will necessarily be on the same page as you. They might not realise what the actual meeting is about. So just objective, the purpose of today's meeting is to, and tell them what it is. The A of TOAD is agenda. And I will say to that prospect, so that we make the most of our time today, what is important that we cover? You know, what would you like to cover today? Something like that. So I find out what's important to them. They might want to say, oh, I want to know about your financials. I want to know about your experience. Whatever they say, I write it down and I make sure we cover those things off. And at the same point, as soon as they've told me what they want to cover on that agenda, I will then offer up anything else that I might want to ask. I might say, so that I can see whether, we can see whether we're a good fit for each other. I'm going to ask you a few questions. I hope that's going to be okay. And we just get that agreement that I've got permission to ask them questions. And then the D of TOAD is the bit that often gets missed out by people. It's decide. What do we want to decide at the end of today's meeting? We don't want it just to continue to another meeting. We want to move it forward. So what do we want to decide? By the end of today's meeting, I would like us to mutually agree whether we feel we're a good fit for each other, or whether we feel that we're the right fit for the ABC project. Okay, so it's really important that if a meeting starts well, it's got a really much better chance of ending well. Okay, so what have we covered? In my very brief little session here, we've covered what consultative selling is, right? And that really great definition of taking the prospect on a journey where they discover that they need what you have. We've spoken a bit about the doctor's mindset, about asking questions to diagnose a problem and linking that problem to a consequence or an implication if they don't fix it. We've then spoken about qualifying opportunities, not wasting our time with people who can't afford or don't have a genuine need for our services. And then finally, TOAD, T-O-A-D. How do we structure that meeting with that prospect? Get the meeting right at the beginning, it's got a much more likely chance of ending well. And if you can do those things, you will have more success, you will win more new clients. So thank you very much. And back over to you, Chris.
Thank you, Simon. Well, now the remainder of the time is available for your questions. Now, you've been sending quite a few as the presentation has been going on, and we also had many questions beforehand as well. And there won't be the chance to answer them all, unfortunately, because time is insufficient. But we'll try and capture the main ones in the best way we can. And I'd like to start with a question, actually, which I think is for you, Tom, actually. And this comes from Alice. It's, how can you become a consultant when you are young and less experienced to those who are consulting you?
Who you're consulting? Well, I've never worked for clients that are younger or my age, so you can do it. Is the first answer. I think importantly for me, I think age is irrelevant. Experience, approach, and the way you advise clients is what people pay for. If you have, as you know, linking to Simon's point, if you have the solutions to your clients' problems, then your age doesn't impact you at all. As well, to Simon's point, 90% of the people you pitch to essentially might not buy your service, and if people don't want to instruct you because of your age, then another client will. It doesn't matter. I think you have to have confidence in yourself, in the way you advise clients, in your experience, and so long as you're providing solutions to your clients' problems, your age is irrelevant.
Okay, thank you, Tom. A question really now for Simon, because this is really an important one relating to sales. But what sort of tips could you share for times when workload is so patchy? And that's a question from Nigel, and I think it's relevant because one of the banes of working as a consultant is you do get these feast and famine all the time.
Yeah, absolutely. That's a really great question. The simple answer is always be prospecting. So ring fence time in your diary, whether that's a certain amount of hours per week, to prospect for new business. Freedom when you have your own business comes from having a full pipeline. Always know where the next opportunity is coming from. So if you're working on a particular project, always know what that next project is going to be, or at least have some other qualified opportunities that you can be talking to. So make sure that you are doing some stuff on LinkedIn, that maybe you're doing some calls, you're going to networking groups, whatever your strategy is, make sure that you consistently prospect the new business. Remember, the more conversations we have, the more opportunities we get, the more sales we make. So yeah, that is it's a very big topic, but you must consistently be looking for new business. And the question here is, are you generally, are you a consultant, or are you a salesperson that sells consultancy services and then also has to do the consultancy work as well? And that's a bit of a mindset thing, because so many people think, they are just a consultant. You are, but you're also a salesperson who sells consultancy services. So always be prospecting.
Okay, thank you, Simon. One of the other questions, it's come up in several formats in the questions we've had both today and before the webinar, and that's about making the leap from a career in a corporate environment into consulting, and how to make ourselves credible to potential clients as a consultant. Now, Nadia posed this question beforehand, but Leo Luke has actually also come in a couple of minutes ago with the question, would you advise going into a certain area of business and gaining operational knowledge in it before going straight into consulting? Maybe if I could start with you, Tony, on that.
You've muted yourself, Tony.
Yeah.
Hello. Yes, this is a very interesting question, and it in fact relates very much to my own experience, because I was a career civil servant and decided to take early retirement and go into consultancy. And what I did basically was did a fair bit of research into the consulting areas, and I discovered I tried to look at consulting in the private sector, but didn't get anywhere. But I discovered that because of my background, consulting in the public sector was much more sensible. And because I was able to do quite a bit of research on what was going on in various areas, I was able to get involved with people in the international area and do quite a lot of consultancy abroad, basically helping with reform in governments in other countries. So picking up the second part of the question, yes, definitely, I would strongly recommend getting some experience in a particular sector and then becoming a consultant in that area. So you're actually being able to use the knowledge and experience you've got in that sector to undertake your consulting work. Thank you, Chris.
Okay, and I think there's probably another one here for you, actually, Tony, while you're on the mic. And it's a question we've had from Yassir. It's from the professional side. What is the difference between advisory and consultancy? And of course, that's something that comes up quite commonly. What's the difference between a consultant and an advisor?
That's a very difficult one. I think it's probably more of a semantic problem, actually. I would see a consultant possibly providing a bit wider advice than an advisor. An advisor might be more limited to a particular area, whereas a consultant might be able to give advice on wider aspects of the organisation or other sectors. Thank you.
Okay. A very straightforward question here for Simon, actually, we've just had coming in. Kathy has said that she missed the explanation for the N part of spin.
It needs payoff. So it's kind of painting a picture of what utopia might look like. So if we can reduce X by this amount, what would that mean to your business? If we could increase, so it's basically painting a picture. If I could, would that make sense? Yeah.
Okay, there's a couple of questions have come in about support networks. So how do you build your support network was asked by Rachel, but also we've had a question about the perceived value of online networking groups, and should we be putting more energy into connections or website development? So basically, to summarize what the questions are asking, is about what the best way is to increase your network on some of the platforms that have been mentioned today. So maybe if I can start with Tom on this one.
Yeah. So I suppose dealing with the non-online network side first, as I touched on, I think or building your network and your support network is really important when starting a business and when being an independent consultant. I touched on the importance of IC and a group of like-minded people sharing experiences, views and thoughts is crucial. From a business perspective, personally, I don't think your network starts anywhere other than family, friends, and then moving into colleagues, clients, etc. And allowing your network to do some work for you. For example, the accountant that I've used for many years was introduced to me by a good friend of mine. And then subsequently, the accountant has introduced me to my insurance broker, who helps insure my company. So allowing your network just through asking questions to develop and evolve your network from a business perspective. And that's the same with clients and I suppose the commercial side of the business as well. Really important with the network as well is to ask questions and actually be, put yourself out there with people, because I found if you ask people for help, you will receive it. But you ask people for advice, they will give it. So it's just allowing yourself the, I suppose, vulnerability in a way to ask for help, which some people find challenging, but you will always receive it. In terms of the online side, for me, LinkedIn is the only social media platform that I use from a business perspective. I'm sure there are others that are relevant for different sectors, but LinkedIn is the one. In the last year, it's online networking, whether it's LinkedIn or through online groups and platforms, has become more and more important, obviously. And I think that it's going to be with us for the foreseeable now. I think the more you can plug into industry groups and industry thought groups is going to obviously help advance your profile within whichever sector you're in. And the accessibility of these is significantly higher than if you were trying to do everything in person. So I think we're getting to a balance of both your in-person networking and online networking, allowing us to take our businesses forward.
Okay, thanks, Tom. I just wonder whether, Simon, you wanted to add anything to that?
Yeah, I mean, for me, most of my work comes from my network, whether that's referrals from people I've met in business, whether I've worked with them in previous companies, or in one of my cases, somebody I went to school with nearly 30 years ago. So the key thing is just to let everybody know what you do and what problems you solve, what niche you work in, who your target audience. Just let everybody know what you do. Interestingly, about what Tom said there about LinkedIn, it's the same for me. LinkedIn is the only platform that I use for my business. And interestingly, during 2020, my most popular training course was on social selling via LinkedIn. So it is the place where everyone goes. And this week, there's training on LinkedIn I'm doing this week as well. It is so popular to do. There's so many people don't get it right. And again, the other thing we do, be consistent, but absolutely your network, that power network, those people who trust you and can refer you, that's your best source of inquiries.
Okay, thank you. There's a question that came in earlier in the afternoon from Darren, which has provoked quite a bit of discussion in the online forum, which is, if a consultant takes on a project manager's role, do they become a project manager, or could this be seen as a specialism within consultancy? And in the subsequent discussion, there's been a lot of comment about whether whether there are other specialisms within management consultancy as well, or whether these are actually discrete professional areas. Maybe as the most experienced hand here, Tony, you might like to start on this one. Mute. Oh,
He's
frightened him off.
the sun's come out. You're on mute, Tony.
Okay.
Yeah.
Sorry about this. The sun came out. Yes, that's a very good question about what is a consultant and what do they cover. I would personally consider that a consultant should be a project manager, because when you're running a consultancy, it's got to be project managed and you've got to have project management skills. In addition to that, consultants can have all sorts of other aspects as well as a consultant. For example, fact-finding, presentation skills, very strong interpersonal skills with clients and so on. So there are a number of areas where being a consultant is rather like an umbrella, and you actually take into your area of working a number of different streams and so on. But definitely do undertake project management. It's very important.
Okay, thanks, Tony. Did either of the other two you want to come in on that?
No.
No. Agree with Tony.
Yeah. Okay. Another question we've had in advance was, what advice would you give for finding opportunities, and how would you weigh up these opportunities and the risks of actually moving into the profession? And I wonder maybe if Simon, you would like to tackle that.
Yeah. It's about really understanding what problems you solve and who has those problems. Where do you find those people? That's how I go about it. But it reminds me of something that I said to my wife when I decided to set my own business up. I said, if this works, it's down to me. And if this fails, it's down to me. And for the first time in my life, I was the captain of my own ship. So that's kind of how I approached, going into a business for myself. But in terms of finding new opportunities, understand what problems you solve, who has those problems, how do you find them, and how are you going to go about doing that. So that might be whether you're going to, go to networking meetings or LinkedIn, or whether you're going to do cold calling, whatever it is, to get those first bits of work. I picked up my first 2 clients in the pub. Believe it or not, my very first 2 clients were people I was drinking with in the pub. The first one said, "Why don't you start your own business?" And the second one said, "Well, if," and he said, "Oh, I'll be your first client." And the second one said, "If he's your first client, I'll be your second client." And that's how I got my first 2 clients. Not saying that's a strategy, but that's how I did it. But going on from there, most of my work has been referrals from people I've met networking, or it's been via LinkedIn. They're the 2 big ones. But understand, especially for LinkedIn, what problems you solve and answer that within your LinkedIn About section. Have a good banner, use the right hashtags, be consistent on your posting, connect with the right people, and that's a very top line overview.
Okay, thank you, Simon. Just at the moment with COVID-19, of course, there's a lot of dislocation in the economy. So it's possible that many of you thinking of becoming consultants are doing so whilst your hand has been forced. But nonetheless, there is always that question, when do you know it's the time to go for it on your own? And this is a question actually that John had put up in advance. Tom, I just wonder whether you might like to tackle that.
Yeah, I think as you said, Chris, I think there will be people who their hand is being forced at the moment to change direction and think about consultancy for those reasons. In terms of when the time is right, I think it comes down to preparation. I don't think you wake up one morning and say, "Oh, I'm going to start my own business now." it's about preparation, and that will lead you to the right time to take the plunge, essentially. And that includes a lot of what I talked about, making sure that you know what accountancy firm you're going to use, or at least the advice you're going to get, where you're going to get your insurance from, what the company's going to be called. To Simon's points, what services are you actually going to be trying to sell, what's the target market, etc. Once you've actually answered a lot of the questions that you should be asking yourself, you will know the time's right. And once, even when you get to that point, I've done it twice in my time, first to set up my first business, and then secondly to leave that business and set up my second business. Even though you've got all the answers and the time is right, it still doesn't sometimes make the decision easy. But I think that's a healthy, a healthy position. But you can help yourself by being prepared and having as much information and as many of the answers that you're going to have given to you. You need the answers before taking the plunge.
Okay, thank you, Tom. A question that's come in fairly recent, in the last couple of minutes actually, but it's provoked quite a bit of discussion, is from Paul, and it's he is in exactly that position. He's been in a job for many years, actually in his case in the social care sector, but what he's asking is, and it's a question that all new consultants get, is how would you suggest I price my time and work? I don't know who wants to start on that one. I think all of you probably got an angle on that one. Tony, maybe?
Yes. One of the ways of doing it basically is to see how much money you want. See how much money, your income, you wish to earn. And then remember that you only have 200 working days a year maximum normally, taking out weekends and public holidays and holidays. And then probably you'll only, if you're very lucky, you'll probably only be working about 50 or 60% of that time. So that's one way of looking at it from the point of view of what you need and take it from there. The other thing is there are some websites where you can actually see what people are actually charging, and you can place yourself in the market. But you have to be very careful about positioning how much you're going to charge, particularly at the beginning, because if you come in with a low price and then try to increase the price later, that's very difficult.
Yeah, okay. I agree. I'd chime in on that, Tony. I think trying to change your pricing structure once you've set it is pretty challenging, particularly if you've got long-term ongoing clients. I think the other piece is, again, to Tony's point of what you need. You need to make sure your price values you and values what you're providing. And what you don't want to do is price too low to win work, and then you're doing work but really feel like you've undersold yourself, because that's not a positive position to be in, either for yourself or your client. You need to be motivated to deliver the best results for your clients, and part of that is how you are being remunerated for your time.
Yeah. If you do underprice a job, you just end up resenting the work when you do it. A bit of advice that I was given is, unless somebody tells you that you're too expensive, then you're probably too cheap.
Yeah.
And I think that's a really quite good way of looking at it. If no one ever tells you you're too expensive, then maybe you can put your prices up. Look, obviously, what your competitors are charging as well. Go with the advice that Tony and Tom have also given, and find somewhere that sits comfortably around that. But yeah, that's how we've all gone about it. You'll soon find out whether you're charging enough or not.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, thanks, Simon. We haven't got that many minutes left now, so I think to conclude, there's a question that's entirely different that was presented beforehand, and it's an international one actually, so there's definitely in your field, Tony, and it's, what is the best route through which students and young professionals in Africa can migrate to Britain as management professionals and consultants? It's a question from Daniel.
Yes, a very good question, and one that often comes up. What I would say is to try to get as qualified as you can, do as much training and education as possible. Try, if possible, to get a business degree, possibly an MBA if you can, or even a bachelor's to start with. And also, I would suggest you might look at the consultancy training courses that the CMI offer. There's a range of providers which you can get from the IC website, and some of these actually run the training courses online. What you're trying to do basically is to build up a portfolio that shows that you are committed, you've bothered to take some research and do some training and get qualified. In addition to that, I would suggest that you might approach any local branches of the big consultancies. Most of those have got offices in many countries in Africa, and try to see if they are recruiting and try to get recruited into them. It's very difficult to come straight to the UK as a young graduate without any particular background or experience. So I would try very hard to get some involvement with local consulting companies, possibly charities as well, to get some kind of track record to show that you're actually really serious about becoming a consultant. There is a lot of talent in Africa, I know, but there's also a lot of work to be done in Africa, and hopefully you might be able to undertake some work there. You could also approach people like the World Bank and the UNDP and other international organizations, because some of those do actually run schemes where they help to train people and also give sources for possible work in the future. But good luck anyway.
Thank you very much, Tony. I think we probably need to wrap up there because there's only a couple of minutes left. But thank you everyone for your questions, and my apologies for those that we weren't able to take on board because of time constraints. Do, however, look out for, as Tony suggested in his talk, our future events coming up. There are a number in the next month or so, and we're also intending to have regular question and answer sessions such as this in the future for people who are interested in joining the consultancy profession. So look out for those in the next couple of months, and they will also be advertised on the website. So on that note, thank you very much, and I'll pass you back to Mel.
Brilliant. That is it for today's session. Thank you to everyone who joined us, and thank you Chris, Tony, Tom and Simon for your insights and expertise. To find out more about this IC membership, simply click on the link in the YouTube description below, as well as the link in the live chat comment box. And if you're not yet subscribed, why not join the IC community via the link as well in the live chat. Thank you for joining us and enjoy the rest of your day.